Hey everybody, it's Romania Black. Oh my gosh, we are on episode 5 of Sasaki to Miyano, or Sasaki and Miyano. But I'm gonna be honest, y'all. I've been working on the recap for Attack on Titan, which is a drastically different show than this. Much different, much more dark and depressing. And so I've been doing I've been basically watching Attack on Titan all day and doing notes and things like that. And it was just starting to make me feel depressed. And I was like, you know what? I need a boost of serotonin. I need some happiness. I need something light and fluffy to counteract the nauseating things I've just watched. So let's watch Sasaki to Miyano. So yeah, we're on episode 5. In the last episode, I loved the last episode. It was great. I talked for quite a while about it. But basically, the idea of Sasaki and Miyano coming to grips with not only their feelings, Sasaki coming to grips with his feelings for Miyano and his sexuality, but Miyano especially about his sexuality and being like, do I like guys? Is that part of who I am? I don't think it is, but I don't know. And a lot of you have commented, and I really like this, the idea that Miyano, he's not what he reads, right? You know, it's a nice break from the stereotype, because a lot of the stereotypes is, well, if you read this certain type of manga, that's who you are. And it's like, no, you can, I read some dark and depressing things, but that doesn't mean that I'm like that. I like to think that I'm an optimistic person. It's just, you just like things, right? And I find them intriguing. So I like that Miyano, he's not immediately what he reads, right? And Oga, despite what Oga thinks, Oga's an interesting character. I really like his character a lot. And so I made a note on here, but I really liked how Oga was handled last episode, even though Sasaki got a little bit jealous and possessive of Miyano there for a second. I wanted to make a note. I had made some notes here. But back in episode 3, a couple episodes ago, Nijay noted on Patreon that Banana Fish was the manga on Miyano's desk. I went back and looked. I was like, oh my god, it does look like Banana Fish. I love that this series has Miyano reading. I was pretty sure it was Fake in episode 1 was the manga that he gave to Sasaki, which is a great beginner BL. Give them Fake. That's a great one to get started. And then Banana Fish is like a leap and bound ahead. So even though it's not necessarily like boys love, it's a lot different of a shoujo. But I like that little callback, so thank you, Nijay, for pointing that out. But yeah, I'm really, really excited to get more into this series. As I'm recording episode 5, episode 7 has just come out, because Twitter's been like, episode 7's out, and people have already been like, episode 8, and I'm like, I'm not there yet. But it's hard not to watch ahead, especially when I'm watching some more depressing shows. I'm like, I need something light and fluffy. So I'm glad y'all are on board with the scanlations, the September scanlations. I think I want to keep using them. One, because I really like them. I like the subtitles a lot for this that have been prepared by September Scanlations. Again, thank you, Seth Mary. Thank you, September Scanlations. But I like not only the subtitles, but also I like not having the lag from being able to just watch the episode like it is. That's great. And then also, I think Nijay was the one that pointed this out too, was the idea that most of you have seen this watching it on Funimation, so you've seen the different subtitles, so it'll be cool to talk to you all watching this, and then you guys in the comments can say, oh, well, this is translated a little bit differently, and then this. So it's a nice comparison. I like that. It's cool to have a dialogue, because translation is hard, and it's fascinating, and I think it's cool that we can talk about the differences that each translation makes on the same content, and how that can alter the meaning, things like that. But I've been told also, this is what I was trying to think of earlier and my mind went blank, but I've been told that Hirano and his basketball roommate are just roommates. They're not dating. Miyano just ships them together, but they're not technically dating. There's supposedly a spinoff series with them. Okay. I didn't know. And so, yeah, that makes much more sense now. So that's kind of sad. So old Hirano's single. Poor guy. But I'm rooting for you and your basketball roommate. Very much so. But yeah, that is sad that they're not dating. So I've been told that, and I was telling everybody in the comments, I was like, well, when I finally get to episode 5, I'll point that out. But sad days. I do hope we get to meet Oga's girlfriend and Kurosawa. Kurosawa is the one, I always forget his name. Kurosawa, he has a girlfriend. And then the president character, we've not formally met him, but he's played by the same voice actor as Ash from Banana Fish, Uchida, who also plays the voice of Uenoyama in Given. So I'm like, interesting. I'm curious about the type of character he is, because Ash and Oinayama they're very different characters, but the voices of them, I could see Uchida playing both, but this character might be interesting. So let's not waste any more time, shall we? I've talked for 5 minutes. Let's go ahead and start. We'll start episode 5 of Sasaki to Miyano here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Oh, we already have a confession. Oh, we ain't waiting for the fireworks. Although maybe the fireworks will be Miyano's confession back, his return confession, because in the OP he's very blushy during that. Oh my gosh! So I have to say I really love. I relate more personally to Sasaki in this show, but I love Miyano's character. I think a lot of you have said you relate to Miyano a lot. I relate a lot to Sasaki. Sasaki's handling of confessions and feelings and things are very relatable. And so I'm like, okay. And Sasaki kind of goes like all in on something he really likes. And Miyano, though, has to take his time and process it more and think more about it. It's interesting. But this episode, it was so cutesy. It was definitely a little bit more, it was more self-contained than episode 4. And it felt, I talked in the ED that it felt more like, you know, when you read a manga and things happen chapter to chapter and you kind of get that progression. Sometimes in anime, when it's adapted, you get that same vibe, right? Where it feels like it just, you can tell this is where the manga is happening and you see it animated on screen. That's how this episode felt. It felt very much like I could see the chapters. There's like the one scene where Sasaki, and I'll point it out, where he like looks up at the camera. I'm like, I just see that as a panel in the manga. Like it just looks so much like that. But we have this like relay and Olympic stuff. It's kind of like free, where each team has like different members that are representing them. It felt very free like. I liked it. And I've noticed they all have different headbands on. And Miyano's a long distance runner. I like that we established little things about Miyano. That he's not a short distance runner. He's a long distance guy. Kurosawa too, by the way. Kurosawa, he's a very good looking character without them glasses on. I mean, with the glasses on, he's fine. But without the glasses, I'm like, I see how you have a girlfriend, dude. And I like that he's also very apt about gazing and be in awe of her splendor. I love that he's all about his girlfriend. It's very cute. But yeah. So, interestingly enough, we have Sasaki joining in. But before we have Sasaki joining, we do this thing about Miyano talking about his hair and from his face. And so we get this little flashback and they're like, it's not so much that your face is girly. You just look so young with your forehead showing. Maybe grow out your hair. So Miyano is all about appearance and he's about perception and how people perceive him. And so when those guys tell him to grow his hair out, he does it because he, takes what people think about him seriously. But even here, he's like denying himself what he actually feels because he's like, it's getting in the way. You can tell he really wants to cut his hair, but he's not because he's afraid of what that will do to his appearance. And to him, appearances matter. But not to Sasaki. No, not to Sasaki, our boy. And I see where y'all are talking about the cat ears. Like the back little strand of hair looks like cat ears on the back. It's actually really, really cute. And then Miyano's looks like the little cicada. Looks like a little antennae. It's very adorable. So yeah. So them talking about, I like that he brings him over to the corner to do his confession because he's like, I can't take it anymore. Last episode was called At My Limit. He's like, I can't handle it. I've got to just get these feelings out, right? And so then, yeah, I wanted to go back to this where he says he does the ball toss. And I remember when our school did like high school or grade school, we did grade school Olympics. And I always did like the shot put, like the ball toss because when I was a kid, I was like, I'm not running. And they said they make the tall guys do that. I'm like, I'm the same height I am now that I was when I was 12. I like hit a growth spurt at age 11. So I was always doing like the stuff that like shot put and stuff for the tall people. Mm-hmm. I love this. I love the idea that Hirano, the head of the disciplinary committee, was banned from the ball toss and everything. And Miyano's like, wait, he was banned? Our Hirano senpai? What did he do? And so then this happened so fast that I was trying to read it. It said he ripped off a classmate's jersey to turn it into a bag, then filled it with balls and threw it into the basket. And so it says, give me your jersey, I'm going to make it into a bag. And so we see Hirano taking this, and this guy's shirt says no mush, no rice. What? It's ridiculous, but I love the idea of Hirano being a troublemaker. And this guy was freezing. And then he says everybody else started to do it, and so he got in trouble because he was like the ringleader, and it got out of hand. Funny to see Hirano has a wild streak in him. It wasn't ball toss at that point. There were clothes flying everywhere, and some guys were running around nude. I was trying to pay attention because this show does a thing where it has Miyano and Sasaki talking at the same time, and one is inner monologue and one is the outer thoughts. And so yeah, Sasaki's saying, he's like, there are people running around nude, it got crazy. And while he's telling this outlandish story, Miyano is saying, I can still talk to him like nothing's happened. And he's like, why did I say thank goodness? It almost seems like I want to keep this relationship going. And then it's the manga. He's like, why am I so relieved? Because he didn't want to break things off with Sasaki. He didn't want it to be awkward, right? And I love that it's the talk about manga that brings him back to reality. And so I thought he was talking about yes, no, or maybe half when he talks about the face mask kiss. But then he says something about catching a cold and other things. I'm like, I don't think that happens in the show. But I've only seen the OVA. I've not read the manga for it. He says, I do like talking to him. That much is true, right? But Miyano doesn't know yet if what he's feeling is just friendship or if it's romantic. He's like, I never thought we'd talk about the stuff I'm interested in, but he doesn't know if it's a romantic kind of like. And then Sasaki's about to answer his question. And I love this part where he gets what moe is, and he's like, oh, that's it. And he talks about cliche and gets it, and they have this really cool conversation. It's so sweet. And then, of course, Miyano's like, well, maybe I just misheard him. We're having such a great time. Maybe that thing he said onto the train to me wasn't a confession at all, right? He's not saying anything directly to me, so maybe it's nothing. What I like about this show is it does not beat around the bush. Other shows would just have that thread carry on for like 4 or 5 episodes, be like, what did it all mean? No, Sasaki comes out and just says it, right? And Miyano's right. He did overreact a little bit, but then Sasaki puts the fear right back into him after they're talking about it. And while they're having this conversation and Miyano's wondering about Sasaki's feelings, Sasaki is having the same internal monologue where only he's pretty assured. He's just like, no, he's adorable. I really like Miyano. And that's when he decides to confess. And so then we talk about this too, right before the confession. I feel like a lot of the times that Uke sucks at cooking. I was like, I was trying to think about examples of that in the moment, and all I could think about was Haruki and Given, because Haruki's kind of the Uke in that, right? But Haruki cooks a lot, and Akihiko eats it, so maybe he's not that bad at cooking. Although it's not Haruki I'm thinking of from Given. If you made Free into a boy's love, Mako cooks a lot, but his cooking is like subpar, they say at best. And so I guess if Mako was Uke, it would kind of make sense too, right? And then he says, that's probably why I prefer to buy those kind of stories. That's why I buy a lot. And then Miyano says, I like the manga where the seme can't cook too. Okay. It's just that the authors I usually buy don't write stories with that kind of content much. So we're not reading any cooking BLs, right? And so then, field day, la la. I love that what I like about September Scanlations is they translate everything on the board too, where I feel like I don't know if Funimation translates all the stuff that's on the board as well. So it's cool getting to see what's actually written there since I can't read Japanese. And then, Sasaki's thinking the same thing too. He wants to stay in the bubble. He's like, I want to keep doing this. But also he's like, I need Miyano to know how I feel. And I want to keep having these conversations. And if I don't tell him, I'm going to burst. And I love he says, I want to keep doing this after graduation. I don't want this to be just something I did back in high school. And that ties a lot to Daokusei. Daokusei is like one of my favorite BL series of all time. I love Daokusei. It's so freaking good. But that's like one of the things with that couple's relationship is that a lot of people in the series at first they tell them, oh, it's just a phase you're going through. It's just something in high school. You're at an all-boys school. Because Daokusei takes place in an all-boys school. So does this. And in that story, a big thematic thing that comes up in the plot is they're like, oh, well, you're just in love right now because you're in an all-boys school and you don't have any other options. Once you branch out and graduate, you'll meet girls and it'll change. We established right off the bat in this story that there's a co-ed school right next door, and like Kurosawa has a girlfriend. And so if they really wanted a girlfriend, they could just go pursue someone over there. But that's not the case. And I love Sasaki saying here that he doesn't want this just to be a fling or fluke. He wants it to be something that continues on. Like, he wants to develop this relationship with Miyano, which is awesome. I love it. And then he confesses, I'm in love with you. just comes out and says it. I love it. I love that he's just like, nope, I'm laying it down. Here we go. Now the ball's in your court, Miyano. I've come out and said it. No whispering, and then the gunshot and the birds flying out. Miyano's like, wait, what? And he says, what I said to you last summer. He's like, I meant it. I wasn't kidding. And Miyano's like, uh-huh. And you think this is... So he's put the ball in Miyano's court, and I'm like, okay. And you worry that Miyano's going to run off. And then Miyano asks him, what about me do you like? And I like what Sasaki does here is that Miyano is clearly flustered. He's like, oh my God, this guy just confessed to me. What do I say? Huh? And my friend's calling me. And I love that Sasaki, doesn't give him an ultimatum. Because he can clearly see that Miyano is, flustered about all of this. And seeing him, grip it, Miyano's trying to think about it. And then, of course, I love the optimism. Sasaki's like, if he's hesitating, that means I got a chance, right? That means he's not totally turned off the idea, right? It's possible, right? I love that he's very optimistic about that. And he assumes that it means he's not totally been kicked out of the notion yet. And so I love this. He says, you can give me a response whenever. Think about it. I love that. He doesn't put him on the spot. He doesn't be like, I love you, so what do you think? He doesn't do that. He's like, no, take your time. I want you to think it over, but this is how I feel. So just get back with me whenever you've got that figured out. I love it. And Miyano's like, I'll think it over, I promise. And Sasaki's like, okay. I love it. He's blushing. He's like, oh, good. That means you're going to think about it. Cool. He's like, okay. Trying to be all cool about it, right? But then Miyano says, what about me do you like? And to be honest, Sasaki's just so in love that it's just the presence of Miyano. It's just him being there. It's his voice. It's him. The moments they share, their conversation, how he feels around him. It's not like anything. It's hard for him to put it into words, right? So his brain latches on to the most tangible thing possible that he can think of in the moment, which is his face. And I love that he blushes. He's like, I was so nervous, confessing. And then he realizes that he messed up the moment that he says face. He's like, I screwed up. Damn it. And of course, that's Miyano's trigger. He's like, and I'm so glad they resolved it in this episode. Thank God they resolved it. Because again, a lot of other series would take this one moment, this one misunderstanding, and drag it out for 5 episodes. And it'd be like, are you serious? But no, not this. It is rectified. It is taken care of in one episode. We have the angst of him realizing he screwed up. And he just runs off to think about it. And oh my gosh. And then of course, yes, Sasaki's like, I'll tell you later. And then they both stew on it for a while, right? Except Miyano gets sick and stuff. And I like the idea that Miyano getting sick and covering up his face right after that. But yeah, that's Miyano's trigger, is that this whole series so far, he's been so self-conscious about his face and being seen as feminine when he wants to be seen as masculine. And I love that. I love that Miyano's like, I'm a guy. I wish I could be more masculine than I am, but I can't help it. He's like, I wish I was taller. And that way people wouldn't confuse me as being feminine. He's like, I don't like it. He's like, it grows irritating. And we'll get to the symbolism here, but poor Sasaki. Sasaki realizing that it's not just his face that he likes. He's like, I need to find a way to communicate. And he's like, damn it. Get it together, self. Oh. And then Hirano shows up doing the whole lean against the building in his cheer uniform. It's great. And Hirano's been in the middle of these two the entire time. So it's I'm glad he finally has figured out everything that's going on, that Sasaki confessed to him, that he confessed to Miyano. I like it. I like that the cat head is in the middle here. What'd you do? And Hirano is so protective of Miyano. Hirano's like, what's wrong with you? But also, did you hurt Miyano? Because then I'll have issues, right? And Sasaki's like, I didn't hurt him. We haven't done anything, technically. And I like the idea that he brings up the time traveler in the BL series. He's like, I wish I could go back in time and change my answer. And Hirano's like, I'm not here to hear about your BL stuff. I hear that enough from Miyano, not you too. Oh. And then Sasaki has a realization. He's like, wait, BL? He's like, is this BL? So he ends up pulling the BL move on Miyano. He's like, gives him the phone conversation and gives him like the straight up line that you'd see out of a BL series. And of course Miyano's going to recognize that. Clever Sasaki. And he's like, what do you think, Hirano? Hirano's like, I don't know what y'all are talking about. But then I love this whole thing with Miyano saying it didn't bother me at first, and talking about and the visuals. I love the visuals of like the classroom and how everybody was talking about how he's girly. And I love the idea of the train, the handlebars where you hang on, and the red flashing through it, like it irritates him. Like, I like that Miyano's able to express. He seems like such a happy-go-lucky person, but he is capable of getting irritated and mad, and this is something that really bugs him. And he says, and little by little, I came to hate it. So, of course, he questions whether Sasaki even likes him to begin with because he supposedly looks like a girl. He's like, well, does Sasaki only like me because I'm adorable and cute and look like a girl to him? He's like, no. Which, again, to me, that kind of fosters the whole... You could either do it one of two ways. It's so funny because this series, I don't know who the uke and the seme is, because I guess we're not supposed to know. That's the point. There is no set definitive niche for either of them, because you could take it one or two ways. I could see the series where Sasaki is the uke and Miyano is the seme, because he's the more like masculine one, technically, the mentally fortitude guy, where Sasaki is the more vulnerable, emotional person. I could see it that way. Or I could see it, my dog's scratching the carpet, or I could see it to where you take the uke and the seme roles and you just change them to where, yes, Sasaki is the seme, but he's emotionally vulnerable and he's the more sensitive and cute one. And Miyano may be the uke, but he is the more masculine and tough one. So maybe just change the dynamics and what the stereotypes are. So I don't know which way it'll go. I don't know if we'll ever get to that point in this. Like, will we get to the point where... Because Miyano's only had his visions and his dreams. We've seen in Miyano's dream that he was on top. We've not seen Sasaki's dreams. So I'm like, is Sasaki the bottom in his dreams, or is he the top? If they're both the top, then that could be interesting. So I don't know. I don't know if we'll ever get... This series is so wholesome. I'm like, will we get to that point? I don't know. Will we get to anything more than just fluff? Will it ever get somewhat spicy? I don't know. And then Miyano talks about the dream that he had. He had a terrible dream about it. And oh my gosh. And the moment he like coughs, I thought that girl for a second was like going to shuffle her seat away from him, but she doesn't. She just visibly notices him cough. But yeah, Miyano's like, I don't want to be a girl. And I see that in a lot of BL series. Like in Fake, that's a big thing too. In Fake, there's the whole thing of the masculine, feminine. And in Embracing Love, that's a big thing with the characters too. Like the uke in the relationship, he laments the entire time that they end up switching roles, and that becomes a thing between them. But he laments most of the manga in Embracing Love. He's like, I'm not feminine. I don't want to be seen as a woman. And so you see that where these are two men in a relationship, and so that changes the relationship and the dynamics a lot, and the gender expectations of each as partners. So it's interesting, and I like that Miyano talks about this. I like that this series addresses that, and Miyano is like our agent, our voice of that. And so then we go to the disciplinary committee, and we have when the president talks, I can hear Ash Links in his voice, more so than Ueneyama. I hear more Ash than I do Ueneyama, which is fun. But Uchida plays his voice, and he's a very quiet character, which is interesting. I'm curious why they had Uchida play him. Because usually Uchida is like a big, bombastic, loud character. So I'm curious why they had him playing him. I wonder if we'll see anything with that. But then, yeah. And I like that. Oh my god, Hirano's response to being like, well, why do you dye your hair? And he's like, because it's cool as fuck. Like, I love this translation does not beat around the bush. If there's any like translation that's similar to that, then it's like, we're just going to say it. I love it. And I love the president just laughs. It's great. He's like, don't you dare laugh. And I'm with Hirano. Like, if you dye your hair too much, it'll just get fried. I love it. And so then, yeah, we bring up Sasaki, and then we go back to folding up all the invitations and everything. I thought for a second that Sasaki would, like, write out his confession on the piece of paper and leave it with Miyano, but there's a lot of dangers with that. One, anybody could have walked in and saw it. And two, those look like invitations. They weren't just blank sheets of paper. It was just the animation. So that wouldn't have worked out. Yeah, because you see when you actually see the... And they only had so many copied, so he didn't want to waste a copy. I see why he didn't do it now, but... Also... Sasaki was very tempted in this episode to do something with Miyano while he was sitting there. And I'm glad also that this series, that's the whole thing about like consent and respect. One thing that I love about this series is that Sasaki, even despite the whole thing with Oga where he was a little bit possessive of Miyano, aside from that moment, Sasaki has always been very respectful of Miyano's boundaries. Like, he's very respectful. One of the tropes that is kind of annoying or irritating in BL series is the whole like non-consent, like when they kiss while I think it's one of my least favorite tropes is when somebody's asleep and they kiss them while they're asleep. I'm like, one, that's not romantic. Two, the person's not conscious, so they're not even recognizing it. And three, it's kind of creepy. So I really don't like that trope when they like kiss while someone's asleep. I'm like, this isn't Sleeping Beauty. It's not a fairy tale. It's weird. So I'm glad that he doesn't do that. Because for a second I'm like, are you going to kiss him over the mask while he's asleep? While he's in this vulnerable state where you've just given a confession and told him that you'd wait it out and let him sort things out and then get back to you? I'm glad that he stayed in character and true to the narrative and didn't go against that. I'm really glad. And plus it goes with Hirano's thing. He's like, did you lay a finger on him? And he's like, no. But it's hard for Sasaki. You can tell Sasaki's trying to work through it all. And he's like, damn it. He's like, I just want to like reach out and touch you and hold you and be near to you. But I can't because I'm respecting your boundaries and giving you time to process and give me an answer. It's really well done. I'm glad this series is showing a lot of consent and respect towards the other partner and not taking advantage of that like you see happen in some BL series. I like it. And then, yeah, him talking about it being a cliche. But I would argue Sasaki and Miyano are not cliche. They kind of go against the cliche, right? And then, yeah, before he can think about anything truly, I like that he says, yeah, I can't do that. I like it. I like that he holds himself back. And around that time, Hirano comes back into the room. Which, Hirano is so interesting in all this. He does, yeah, he says, I'm screwed. He does touch the mask, but that's all he does. And then I'm sure Hirano was sitting there being like, okay. Like it was maybe a test and being like, what's going on? You just creepily stood there the whole time. And Hirano is suspecting that Miyano's acting weird because Sasaki's done something to him. And Sasaki hasn't done anything to him. He's just confessed to him. And I'm glad they put it out in the open. He just finally told Hirano what was up. I love this scene between him and Hirano. I love it where he's like, so did you pull something with Miyano? Because he wants to watch out for Miyano. It's like he's been acting weird. And then Sasaki just tells him. Sasaki is, if anything, just honest and blunt. And he's like, I told him I loved him. And I like that Hirano does a double take. He's like, wait, what? And then he's like, it didn't come out right and I want to fix it, but he keeps avoiding me. And Hirano's like, wait, you told him you were in love with him? Hold on, like, I didn't think it was that, you know? And I like that Hirano's like, is he supposed to be telling me this? And Sasaki's like, well, I guess we're good enough friends. And then Hirano does, like, the ultimate, like, wingman move. He's like, and he brings up a good point. He's like, wait, you all haven't exchanged contact info? It reminded me a lot of Given. Case in point, it reminded me a lot of Given when Haruki gets on to Ueneyama. He's like, you didn't get Mafuyu's cell phone number? You guys have been seeing each other and don't even have contact info? What is this? I love it. I love that Hirano was very much Haruki in that moment. Like, take care of this right now. And so I love that he has Sasaki call Miyano on his phone because he knows Miyano will answer. He won't avoid him if it's through his phone. And then, yeah, Sasaki says we've been doing things out of order, I guess. Kind of, but not really. I mean, you guys spent 6 months getting to know each other practically. And then you did confess that you loved him, which is a step maybe ahead of, confessing your love before you got their cell phone number. A little out of order, but it's all right. He's like, take my flip phone. Go. Stop making excuses and explain things. I love Hirano, this take charge boy that's like, just get the job done. Quit making excuses. I freaking love Hirano in this moment. He's like, I'll leave you to it. Give me my phone back when you're done. My dude, my dude. And so then, yeah. Then Miyano, and I love that between them. He's like, look. And that soft expression on Sasaki's face, it's so soft. When he has the phone, he's just like trying to think of what to say. It's so freaking soft. But yeah. And then him loosening his hand and just saying, he's like, God, I love him so much. I want him to say my name more and more. It's like, Sasaki. Sasaki, my dude. And so then, yeah, all he says is like, I realized there was something I forgot to tell you. I borrowed Hirano's phone to call you and tell you this very important thing. Just so you know, I am crazy about all of you and not just your face. And it's like, okay, that's all. Bye. Feel better. And I love that Hirano was listening and he's like, are you serious? I'm going to kick your ass. I hope Miyano kicks your ass. Like, how dare you? I gave you my phone to straighten this out and this is how you repay me? And then Miyano, the ball's back in his court now. The ball is back in his court. A sneak attack BL move. And then I like that Kurosawa tries to butt in and he's like, shut up, you girlfriend having demon. And he's like, you want to see a pic of her? He's like, your doting lectures on your girlfriend last at least an hour. And then I like Tashiro's like, show me a picture. And I love this where he's like, be in awe of her splendor. And he's like, oh, she is a cutie. And he's like, you're dead if you fall for her. You're creeping me out, Kurosawa. I'm glad we got the after credits scene because I was wondering what Hirano and Sasaki were talking about. I'm really glad that we got this after credits scene. And he's like, I told you not to lay a finger on him. And Sasaki's like, I haven't, not technically. And then Hirano's like, are you serious? He's like, yeah. I love it. I don't want to hear it. He's like, just don't take this. He's like, discussing your love life gives me the chills. I love we have the unspoken dialogue between them. He's like, don't take this lightly. And Sasaki being like, I won't. And so Hirano's like, don't go breaking my boy's heart. You started this. Don't you go doing something foolish unless you're committed. It was such a good episode. It was not as crazy thematically as episode 4, but it was still really, really good. I liked this episode a lot. I'm glad we finally have, 1, this confession out in the open, 2, Hirano knows, because now Hirano's going to be in the middle of all this. So hilarity will ensue, I'm sure. But also that they didn't, there was angst for a hot second, but it didn't linger on it. It was just like, okay, we have this mild angst. We spent the episode resolving it. Okay, resolved. Now the ball is back in Miyano's court. And so Miyano has this confession. What are you going to do with it, Miyano? You have this confession. How do you feel about Sasaki? How are you going to respond to him? Next week is halfway through the season, so what a great place to be figuring it all out, right? Halfway through the season, great time to be figuring out your emotions. So, this episode is great. I'm very curious to know your thoughts down below. I hope you enjoyed my ramblings. I hope you enjoyed this reaction. But yes, I'm excited. So next week, we're at the halfway point. Whew. Halfway through next episode with our boys Sasaki and Miyano. I'm pretty excited. So in the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, we'll be back next week to talk more about these 2 lovebirds. Well, Sasaki's a lovebird. We'll see if Miyano is a bird of a feather as well. Next week on Sasaki to Miyano. Bye.